Okay, today we're going to be taking notes a little bit differently than what we do normally. We're going to be doing this on video. So today you guys are going to get the opportunity to watch this video and then write down the notes as you go, as well as answer questions as we go through each one of the slides, and make sure that you define all the key vocabulary words for this lesson. At the end of the lesson, you will turn in your notes along with everything that you've written down, questions and everything, and submit them to me for a grade for today. So today is going to be about taking notes, paying attention, make sure that you listen as well as write. So again, if you need to pause this video anywhere throughout the lesson, then you can do that, and that will help you to retain and sort of focus on what you're doing as you go. So again, if you need to do that, no problem with doing that. I would also suggest bringing a pair of headphones and wearing a pair of headphones while you're listening to this lesson, so we're not all bogged down with hearing the same thing all throughout the classroom. So with that being said, let's start on our lesson for today, and it's going to be what happens to Europe after the fall of Napoleon, and we're going to see the rise of nationalism, and we're going to see new democratic systems begin to emerge. So that's what this lesson is going to be about. So get ready, get your pencil and paper out, and let's go over this and let's talk about what happens in Europe after Napoleon is gone. First thing I would like for you to do is write down your learning objective questions. You can write these down, and then once you have completed the lesson, I would like for you to go back and answer these questions. So make sure that you leave enough room between the question and your enough space to where you can write the answer down. So please make sure you leave enough room to do that. So again, here are the learning objectives for this lesson. Number one, you should be able to explain what the Congress of Vienna was. Number two, you should be able to explain and describe the concert of Europe. Number three, describe the rise of conservatism and its liberal opponents. And you should be able to explain conservatism and liberalism as it relates to this period in Europe. And the final one will be to describe the principle of intervention and why it was created. So again, pause the video, write those learning objectives down. Once you finish the lesson, then go back and answer those learning objectives. Again, some of the key things that you're going to need to know is going to be what the Congress of Vienna was and what the Concert of Europe was. And they basically had a couple of different functions. Remember that after Napoleon is gone, they've got to decide what to do with all these countries that France had conquered under the control of Napoleon. So they're going to have to decide if they want to restore the kings and queens or the monarchs back to power in a lot of those places. The other thing that they're going to struggle with is how are they going to keep a balance of power in place? And we'll talk about that as we go through this lesson. The other thing that you need to understand is conservatism and liberalism and the principle of intervention. All of those are key things that you will need to know when writing down these notes and when test time comes. As always, we start off with a warm-up question. You can write your warm-up question down and then answer it. Here's the warm-up question. If you were a European leader in 1815, what would your top priority be? Would it be peace? Would it be power? Or would it be progress? And I want you to write that down and explain to me why you chose that particular choice. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the lesson, Europe is in chaos after the fall of Napoleon, as there is a struggle between going back to the old ways or trying to start something totally new, because we had the French Revolution, we had the American Revolution. A lot of these monarchs are a little bit afraid of what's going to happen after Napoleon's gone. So again, that's going to be our next focus. So what was the Congress of Vienna? And again, it was a meeting by the European powers that had defeated Napoleon. And so they got together and they decided what they were going to do. And this occurs between the years of 1814 and 1815. And they wanted to restore stability to all of Europe during this time. There were three main goals that the Congress of Vienna wanted to accomplish. And after this video is over with and after you've done the lesson, I want you to think about, did the Congress of Vienna achieve these three goals based on what's going to happen in the future? The first one was legitimacy. They wanted to restore legitimate governments back to power, restore the monarchs, restore the kings and the queens that had been in charge before, bring them back and put them back into their rightful seats. The second thing that a lot of these European powers wanted was they wanted compensation. Some of them wanted land, some of them wanted wealth, some of them wanted all kinds of things, but they wanted some sort of compensation for defeating Napoleon and to make sure that another Napoleon didn't come to power. And then the final thing was the balance of power. They wanted to make sure that no one country became very dominant in Europe during this time. So again, those were the three main goals. Write those three things down, as well as what the Congress of Vienna was. So there were five major countries that met at the Congress of Vienna. The first was the country of Austria, led by von Metternich. His main goal was to preserve the monarchy. The second country was Britain, led by Castlereagh, and his main goal was to maintain balance throughout all of Europe. The third country was Russia. Remember, Russia was the one that drove Napoleon out of Russia and then eventually led to his first defeat at the Battle of Leipzig. But Alexander I, who was the Tsar, wanted to expand Russian influence into Europe. So that was his main goal. The other country was Prussia, and Prussia wanted to make sure that they gained some more power, that they got more strength during this time, and they were led by a guy named Hardenberg. And then the last country is going to be France, and France is under the control of a guy named Talleyrand, and he wanted to restore France's status and get them away from people remembering Napoleon and thinking of France as this great European power like it had been before the Revolution and before Napoleon. There were two forms of ideology that are going to occur. We're going to see these two forms emerge mainly due out of what they were going to do in Europe, and that was restore the monarchy or go to some of the new ways. And so if you believed in restoring the monarchies, then you were basically a conservative. You believed that things should stay the same, that they should be stable, that this was tradition. That is what conservatism was in Europe at this point. Liberalism was the other ideology. And what liberalism was that it was basically all the things that were done for these revolutions. The idea of freedom and rights and constitutions. All of those were things that were very important to the people of Europe at this point. So you were either a conservative or you were a liberal. We're going to get into one other group too that's going to come out of this, and that's going to be the radicals. And we're going to talk about what was the difference between radicals, liberals, and conservatives in the next lesson. Once the Congress of Vienna had met, they decided that they needed some sort of peacekeeping organization in place. That peacekeeping organization would come in the form of the Concert of Europe. So what was the Concert of Europe? It's sort of like our United Nations is today. Its main goal is to try to keep peace, and for the most part, the Concert of Europe was successful in keeping peace for almost 40 years in Europe. And again, it was done to try to make sure that there were no more revolts and no more wars in Europe during this time period. The other key term that comes along with the Concert of Europe is that when all these European powers decided to meet and create this concert of Europe, they also decided to do something called the principle of intervention. And in the principle of intervention, what that basically said was that if a European power had a revolt or had a war, that the other European powers that were in the concert of Europe would come to their defense and would help stop these revolts or these revolutions that could possibly occur. And again, this worked for almost 40 years during this time with the concert of Europe. So, what is going to be the legacy of the Congress of Vienna? Again, with the concert of Europe being added to all of this, there's going to be 40 years of peace. A lot of these revolutions that are going to occur are going to be suppressed. They're going to be able to put these revolutions down and help these monarchs sort of maintain power. We're going to talk about a couple of these revolutions in the next lesson, the revolutions of 1830 and the revolutions of 1848. And then the final thing on here, and I want you to write this question down, leave a space to write your answer. Do you think that the Congress of Vienna was a success? Did it repress or did it stop progress? So I want you to write that question down. Did it preserve peace or repress progress? And then answer that. You can pause the video if you need to at this point. So now that we understand what the Congress of Vienna was, what the concert of Europe was, what conservatism and liberalism was during this period, and what the principle of intervention was, we need to know all four of those things. So again, if you don't, then maybe go back and rewatch some of this video. But I do want you to write down these questions as an exit ticket on your notes that you're taking at this point. So here's the first question for your exit ticket. Number one, I want you to tell me what was a success of the Congress of Europe. And if you can't remember, you can go back and look at your notes or rewind the video, or you can look it up. The second thing, I want you to tell me what was a failure of the Congress of Vienna. So you can either look it up or go back and see if you can find something in your notes that shows the failures of the Congress of Vienna. The third thing is I want you to tell me what the principle of intervention was and put that in your own words, not an AI version. And then the final thing, which ideology would you support in 1815? Do you believe you would be a conservative, or do you think that you would be a liberal based on what you know from these notes? Again, once you have finished doing the exit ticket and all of your notes have been recorded, then bring those notes to me so that I can check them off. It will count for a grade for today, so make sure that I see those notes. And again, make sure that you write down and go back and answer those learning objective questions from the beginning of the video, and make sure that those are answered as well. And then I will check you off. Save these notes as we're getting ready for our next test, and hopefully this speeds up our process of note taking during the class period, so we don't have to spend as much time on some of the notes. But hopefully this helps. And you can always go back and rewatch this at any point if you don't remember something. But I do want you to write these things down. I do want you to start looking at them, making sure you're familiar with them. Our next lesson is going to be about those revolutions that occur after the Concert of Europe and the Congress of Vienna. So we will be talking about that next, and then we will finish this lesson up with a test probably some point next week. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to bring those notes to me, and we'll catch you guys soon.